Hi book lovers, it's Jenny at Julia Baby Jen, and today I'm going to be talking about the Six of Crows duology. Alright, so today I'm going to be talking about the Six of Crows duology by Leigh Bardugo. This is a fantasy YA duology set in her Grisha universe, so Shadow and Bone, that trilogy. This is kind of a follow-up to that. It's different characters, it's a different part of the world, but it does kind of continue the Grisha universe, I guess, story in some ways, and there are some spoilers for Shadow and Bone. So if you don't want to be spoiled with some of the things that happen in there, you probably want to read that one first. I recommend reading that one first anyway if you haven't, just because these are like so much better. Her writing has improved so much since her very first book, Shadow and Bone. And I feel like if you read this and then try to go read Shadow and Bone, you're going to be very disappointed, and it'll be hard for you to get through it. Not that the books are bad, they're good reads, but they're just not nearly as good as these. And I do feel like every book she wrote in Shadow and Bone got better and better. The first book I liked, the second book I thought got better, and the third book I thought was really well done. And then this just is even better than that. So basically, in this duology, you have Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. And I'm going to start with a spoiler-free overview and a few general comments about the series, and then I'm going to move on to spoilers. So I'll let you know when I do start those, so you can turn this off if you haven't read these yet. But basically, this takes place in a place called Ketterdam, which is like its own little island, and it's a very rough, hedonistic kind of part of society. There's a lot of gambling, there's a lot of prostitution dens, and it's basically a lot of people live on the streets. You're either very rich or very poor, and people are always after you as a mark, and it's a very lawless kind of a place, and you can buy people off, and it's that kind of a place. So we're following 6 main characters in this one. It starts off more with 2 or 3, and then the other ones slowly start making their way through. But basically, we're following these 6 characters as they team up. They're a bunch of ragtag, lawless individuals, outcasts and such, that don't really like each other at all, but they team up to pull off this impossible heist. And if they are able to pull this off, they will be richer than their wildest dreams. So that's why they team up to do this. They all have a specific skill set that will help this job happen, and it's almost impossible to do this. It's going to be in the Ice Court, which is another land in the Grisha world that doesn't like to have anything to do with the Grisha at all. And the Ice Court is almost impenetrable. It's basically their prison, their government center, that kind of thing. So they're trying to recover a stolen scientist who's invented this drug that's very, very harmful, and if it's in the wrong hands, it could be detrimental to society. So they're supposed to steal the scientist back and give it back to their government. It's basically the idea behind this. So we have the 6 characters. Kaz, who is kind of our main character, really. I guess they're all really main characters, but he is the one who is in charge of his own ragtag team of people. I can't remember the name of his crew, but he's working under someone, a mob boss type person who is not the most powerful in the city. He came to the city when he was young and orphaned and had tragedy struck, and as the story goes on, you learn more about his tragedy. But it has left him a very heartless kind of a young man. He's like 19, 20 in this, and he will do anything he can for money and to survive. And he is known for his daring escapes, and he is looked upon with fear in most of Ketterdam. So he's pretty powerful, and he's the one who was contacted to put together this team to do this heist. Then we have Inej, who actually works for Kaz. She is called she is basically known as Kaz's Spider, or the Wrath, she's called sometimes. She is a girl who was a trapeze artist and has incredible bounce, can climb anything, is super quiet, can spy on anyone. She can get herself in and out of amazing situations. She's very talented at that. So, of course, he brings her on board for this plan. He actually saved her from a prostitution den a long time ago, and she's trying to work her debt off so she can be free. And her big goal is she wants to get on a ship and have adventure. Then we have Nina, who is Grisha and a heartrender. And so Kaz knows her from different things, so he has her join their group. Then we have Matthias, who is actually a convict that they have to free from prison, and he is from the place of the ice court. Oh, so, okay, just looking at the map here, this maybe help you out a little bit too, looking at the map. But so they're from Kerch, Ketterdam and Kerch is where they're from. And then they're going to Fierda, to the capital de Gerholm. I don't know if I pronounced any of this right. And that's where the ice court is. And so here's a map of the actual ice court, so you can kind of see the kind of job they have. It's a very difficult job. So Matthias is actually from there, and he got trapped in Kerch, and he's actually in prison. He was captured. And he and Nina have a huge backstory that comes out throughout the novel, but Nina is the one who helps them bring him out of prison. They need him for his inside information to break into the ice court. He knows all the information, but they kind of have him by the balls. He doesn't want to help them at all. He's not loyal to Grisha at all. He wants to go back home, but he's considered a traitor, and they have something over him, so he has to cooperate with them. And he wants to kill Nina the entire time. She betrayed him somehow. And then we have, who else do we have? Oh, we have Jesper, who also works for Kaz and is kind of, I mean, they're kind of like friends, but I wouldn't say they're like best friends. On the surface, it seems that way, but he has a huge gambling problem. But he is a great sharpshooter. He can shoot just about anything, and that's where his skill set's really good. And then the last one we have is, and then we have Wylan, who really doesn't have any huge skill set. He is a runaway, and actually his father is part of the government and the man who hired Kaz for this job. Kaz doesn't really trust this man to deliver on if they pull off this job. He doesn't trust them to give them their money, because it would be a really easy thing for him just to double cross them, take the scientist and call it good, because they're such lawless people, no one will believe them. So he's holding Wylan mostly for ransom, so he makes sure that they'll get their money, but he doesn't tell Wylan that at first. He makes Wylan think that he's contributing to their cause. So Wylan doesn't really have a lot of skills as far as the novel starts out with. He's more there for insurance purposes. So those are our 6 characters. They're all very diverse, very different, and like I said, I already told you how much some of them hate each other. There's a lot of history between each of them, some of them, and then their own stories are interesting. And the thing about this book is it takes a little while to get into. It starts off kind of slow. It's building up the world, and it's really well detailed. I love the world building in this. It's wonderful. And at first the characters seem so despicable, and you don't care for them at all. But at some point, I think it's about a third of the way through the book, at some point, somehow, I started caring about them a lot. Some of it was you learn some of their backstory, but a lot of it was just the interaction and she writes these scenes between them. There's laugh out loud funny moments in this. There's tons of adventure, heart-stopping adventure. And some of the things they do is almost near impossible. And it's like a really fabulous movie. If anybody really likes the Now You See Me movies, I would compare this a little to that. I mean, that's obviously not a fantasy. It's modern. They're using magic tricks. But it's somewhat like that. You know, a ragtag team, people put together with these wonderful skill sets that complement each other, and they can pull off the impossible. And that's sort of what these books remind me of. It's scene after scene kind of that. So it really reads like a movie. And once you get into that and really start to care about the characters, it is just amazing. And the more you start to know about them, the more you care about them, the deeper into this they get. The plot gets more and more intense. Crooked Kingdom is a whole nother thing. It gets even better. So Six of Crows, I don't want to tell you how it ends, but this basically takes place after the heist is over. And I'm not going to tell you if it's successful or not. After the heist is over, so they're dealing with what happened during the heist now has affected a lot of things, and so now they're dealing with that in this book, and so they have another impossible thing to pull off in this one. It's not really a heist, it's a con. They have to pull off this impossible con in this book. So they're wonderful reads for that. I feel like it just has the whole package. And if you get into stuff like that, if you get into heist stories and spying and impossible feasts and adventure and fantasy, there's a lot of fantasy in this, and wonderful world building and escapism to this wonderful world. These books are amazing. Not to mention, the characters are incredible. The development is awesome through the whole duology. You will just learn to love these characters, even though they are very flawed. That just makes them all more real. It makes you care about them even more, in my opinion. So this is just a wonderful series. If you haven't read it, you need to. All right, now I'm going to talk about spoilers. So if you haven't read these yet and don't want to be spoiled, you need to turn this off now. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about every little thing in these because it would be forever. We'd be talking for an hour on these books, but there are a few things I really wanted to talk about. First, I really want to talk about the characters themselves. So, Kaz is, I think, I don't know which one's my favorite. Kaz was, in the first book, I felt like Kaz was my favorite character, followed very closely by Inej. But I have to say, in Crooked Kingdom, he became, I didn't like him less, I would say, necessarily, but I feel like others took his place maybe a little bit. Like, it became, I feel like the first book was really more Kaz's story, and the second book definitely still has that. We still have his character development and his stuff going on, but I really loved him more, I think, in the first book. Now, Kaz is a really interesting character, and I felt so bad for him when you finally learn his backstory and learn why he can't touch people. And it's just so sad. In Crooked Kingdom, it really upset because he and Inej are starting kind of finding their relationship and their place. They kind of have been falling in love with each other the whole time. They depend on each other. They're really, in a sense, best friends, or as close as best friends as Kaz could ever be with anyone. He trusts her more than he would ever trust anybody else. But at the same time, he is so damaged, and she is as well. They can barely even touch each other. But I feel like even though they have that terrible problem, I would say, I guess you could say it's a problem. It's a problem if you want to be romantically involved and can't touch each other. I think their relationship transcends the physical. I think their relationship is a lot more of an emotional and mental connection. And what I loved about these books was how that became so evident throughout Crooked Kingdom, especially because they couldn't touch each other. And I kind of thought that was really an interesting way to look at their relationship. So I really loved that. And I loved the ending. Oh my gosh, the ending to this, love it so much. I want more of them. I want to know what happens to them. I feel like they're never going to have a happily ever after. They're too damaged. But if they could just agree that they're not going to find anything better than each other in this world, and to just agree to let it be as it is and just be as happy as they can from that, I feel like they would have some kind of a happiness. I mean, as much happiness as they could possibly get. I don't ever feel like they would ever be a conventional couple. I don't even know if they could get to the point where they could even have sex. But in the end, that doesn't matter, because what matters is their connection to each other. And they don't have that with anybody else, and they probably will never find a connection like that with anybody else. So I feel like so many times especially Crooked Kingdom, I felt like yelling at them. Who cares if you can't touch? Yeah, it sucks, but don't worry about it. You both feel the same way about it, and just do your thing and be happy. I mean, just recognize what you have in each other, and yeah. I thought it was an interesting way to look at people who are damaged from like abuse or whatever traumatic experience you might be in. And how, yes, that's going to, maybe that will affect the rest of your life, but it doesn't mean that you can't be happy, that you can't find happiness some other way, that you don't have to be conventional to find happiness. So I really liked that whole thing. I thought the whole thing was great. Kaz himself was awesome. I really did like him, even though when he was being despicable. And I feel like even when he's being despicable, he does have some kind of moral code. He just is really... he really has that revenge thing going. He really has to take revenge on his brother. I mean, that's just his purpose. So everything else kind of got in the way of that. But Anyway, he was an interesting character. Sorry, I'm blaming my cat's cat toy. I don't know why. Okay, Inej, loved her so much. My love for her never diminished throughout the entire stories. I was so afraid that something was going to happen to her. There was a few different times where it looked like she might die, and I was like, would have been heartbroken. I would have been totally heartbroken if she would have died, and it wouldn't have surprised me if Leigh Bardugo had done that. I could see her being very ruthless, but she did not. Thank goodness. I just survived everything. I feel like she got wonderful happiness at the end. I was so happy with that ending. Um, and yeah, she's not as complex, I don't feel, as Kaz. I feel like she still has more of a soul than he does. She just really was caught in really bad circumstances. I don't feel she's done terrible things too, but I feel like she didn't have control of a lot of the things that she had to do. Um, it was either that or go back to being a prostitute. And so I don't really blame her for the decision she made. Whereas Kaz, I feel like his soul's a little more tainted because he didn't have to do a lot of things he did. He could have many times just given up and said, hey, I'm not going to pursue this revenge thing. I'm just going to do what I can do and try to be happy. So I feel like she had a much more innocent soul than he did. And I really liked her ending. Nina and Matthias, oh my gosh, they became I really loved them in Crooked Kingdom. I didn't think I was going to ever love them. But I mean, I always kind of liked Nina, but I wasn't sure about Matthias. But as we got going and they started to fall in love, I was so sad when he died. I knew that one of them was going to have to. I mean, you can't have a book like this be realistic and not have one of them kick the bucket at some point. I always thought it was going to be Inej because that would be the most heartbreaking. But, or even Kaz. I could have seen it being Kaz. But, yeah, I'm so sad it was Matthias because they were finally on their way to happiness. And poor Nina. Oh, yeah, that was terrible. Him as a character really grew. I really enjoyed his story arc, how he overcame his prejudices. I mean, at the beginning, it's easy to hate him. You know, oh, you're despicable. You hate this race of people. You know, when people think that way, a lot of times they are raised in a way where they're brainwashed to that effect. So, you know, it's a major thing to overcome that thinking. And I was really proud of him for doing it. Not only overcoming the thinking, but falling in love with the thing that he professed to hate. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, that's a really incredible story arc. Nina's story arc was also good because I feel like she was the least maybe despicable of the group in a lot of ways and the least flawed. But then she had to fight her way through that drug, and that was incredible. I can't believe she could do that and come to terms with her new gift, which was really interesting in Crooked Kingdom. Her story took a really interesting turn with that. I thought that was really interesting. It was like she had flirted with the devil and she came out of it, but not completely herself anymore. And it was an interesting thing. Then we have Wylan. His story arc was really interesting too. I love how he finally kind of came into his own, and I feel like his future is definitely a lot brighter than it was before. Learning his entire backstory in Crooked Kingdom was really interesting to me. I was floored by his history because we knew some of it, but we didn't know all of it till Crooked Kingdom. And wow, that that poor kid. So I was really actually proud of him at the end. I feel like he really manned up in Crooked Kingdom. And then we have, who am I missing? Oh, Jesper. It's always the one I forget. Jesper, I really loved from the very beginning of this book. He was one of my favorites. And then when we learned what he did and how he double-crossed them, not maybe intentionally, but he was the main reason that that Inej was almost killed. Oh, man. I still really loved him, but that really kind of, I don't know. His story was interesting too, and we learned so much in Crooked Kingdom about him as well. And I feel like Crooked Kingdom really did a great job with story arcs because it really took their stories and really showed you. Because we really only at that point knew a lot about Kaz. We knew some about the others, but not as much. And we started learning more and more and more. So, yeah, I feel like his story was really interesting as well. And I think he still has a lot of growing to do. I feel like the end of Crooked Kingdom, I feel like the one who still has a lot to learn and has a lot of growing to do is Jesper. And I'm hoping that there's going to be another series. I would love one just on him and his future adventures. Maybe him and Wyland, because their story was really interesting together too as well. That could be a really great series. So I am really hoping that there's going to be another spin-off series or more than one series of this 6. Maybe not all together, but individually. I would love more on all these characters. There's still a lot to explore. I mean, this particular tale is wrapped up well, but they all are going off their own ways, and there's a lot more story. Plus the fact that Ketterdam is still um, Ketterdam is still incredibly corrupt, and they really only fixed one man's problem. They only really toppled one man, evil man in this, and there's a lot more evil man, and there's still a lot to conquer in this world, like Inish wanted to do. So I really hope that we get more and more of that. So anyway, I think that's really the main points I wanted to talk about in this trilogy. Leave me comments below on your thoughts on this, on the characters, who is your favorite, and just what you think of, if you read Shadow and Bone, what you think of that compared to this series. I'm just interested in your thoughts. I would love to chat about this some more, because this is the kind of series you could talk about for a really long time. So I hope everyone has a good day, and I will talk to you later. Bye.